Thanks for joining us here on 9 News Plus. I'm 9 News meteorologist Chris Bianchi, and want to take a look back at just the enormous amount of rainfall that we got over the course of this past week. I don't have to tell you that it rained a lot, but want to put this in a little bit of a context, just how much water we got, and does this compare to the 2013 flood or not? We're going to get into a lot of this coming up here over the next few minutes. But first things first, I want to show you the basic stat here. Denver, this is officially at Denver International Airport, where we picked up about 4.5 inches worth of rainfall last week. You add in the little bit of rain that we got over the weekend. And also here this morning, we're up to 4.65 inches worth of rainfall so far this month. Basically, all of that has come within the last 5 days. That is a stunning amount of rainfall. On average, May is our wettest month of the year in Denver. We have more than doubled the full month of May rainfall, and we're barely halfway through the month. We're actually technically not exactly halfway through the month yet. This is already our 11th wettest May on record. We're going to climb into the top 10 probably later today, and we've got basically a lock on a top 5 wettest May on record for us. And again, May on average is Denver's wettest month of the year. So just a ton of rainfall. But let's get into a bit more specifics about what we saw just last week. Now, last week we got about 4.4 inches worth of rainfall in those 3 days between Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Almost all of that coming on Thursday, and Thursday specifically was our 8th wettest day of the year, wettest day ever recorded in Denver. By the way, records in Denver go back 151 years. That is a long, long time, and we've picked up more rain than just other than 7 other days on record. Again, 8th wettest day of the year, wettest day on record in Denver just last Thursday, and that basically doubled the old record for the day of 1.55 inches that was previously set back in the 1990s. Now, how about this for a little bit of comparison? You compare this to Seattle. Of course, we all know Seattle for its very soggy climate, Pacific Northwest. Fun fact also, by the way, Seattle yesterday got up to 89 degrees. That's another story. But Denver, last week, in about 42 hours, picked up more rain than Seattle has seen since April the 1st combined. So just, again, putting this in a bit more context, a bit more perspective, just the amount of water we've seen. Also worth noting that the airport number, what we saw at DIA, slightly lower than what most of the city has seen. Most of the city has seen about 5.5 inches worth of rainfall. The airport a little bit lower than that. West side of town, I will note, you get out by Golden, Boulder, and those numbers about 3.5, 4 inches. So DIA number probably in the middle low side of things, but whatever. You get the idea here. It's no matter exactly how you chalk it up, a lot of water. All right, this to me is probably the best way to kind of compare things. DIA last week picked up 4.4 inches worth of rainfall. As I mentioned, 42-hour rainfall total in a full calendar year. This is, again, full year. This includes rain, sleet, snow, melted snow equivalent. This was about a third of what Denver typically gets in a full year. And again, that came in less than 2 days. In 42 hours, again, slightly less than 2 days, Denver saw about a third of its typical annual rainfall. And you compare that to what you see over a full calendar year. Hey, you know what? This more than made up for our deficit that we had. We had a pretty big year-to-date deficit until last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We blew that out of the water and then some. Now, to me, this is probably what stands out more than anything else to all of you out there. You go back to last Tuesday, and with the exception of a few hours late on Friday night and Saturday morning, you might remember we had some peaks of sun late on Friday once the rain stopped, and then on Saturday morning we also had some peaks of sunshine when you first woke up on Saturday morning around 6, 7 a.m. Other than that, we have had cloudy skies here in Denver. So 135 hours of basically, it's not exact, as I mentioned, with the Friday night, Saturday morning exception. We've basically been fully cloudy for 135 consecutive hours here in Denver. That here, folks, and even with May being our cloudiest month of the year on average, that basically never, ever happens here along the Front Range. Basically never, ever happens that we're constantly cloudy for about 6 straight days. That's where we're at this point. And by the way, is still cloudy. So I'm looking outside our window here at Spirit Logan right now. So that number is probably going to get extended by a few more hours. We should get some peaks of sun later today, and then tomorrow we should end this streak entirely. But speaking of the forecast, you look at the forecast, and we're going to be adding some of those rainfall totals. We're probably, it looks like on Thursday, Friday, maybe adding another ½ inch to maybe an inch of rainfall here in Denver. This is not even close to what we saw last week, but Wednesday night, Thursday, and Friday, we should add probably, again, another ½ inch of rainfall, and that means we'll climb well over 5 inches, probably getting 5.5, 6 inches of rainfall on the month, which would put it in the top 10 wettest months on record, top 5 wettest Mays on record. So we're getting into pretty serious territory, and then we get maybe another shower or storm on Saturday, Sunday, and things just continue to stay on the very wet side of things. And what that's also going to do is, if you look at our drought monitor map, this is really the figure that matters the most, and this map is going to look really different. This map will be updated on Thursday. Every Thursday morning, the drought monitor map is updated. It takes the data through the previous Tuesday in mind. So last week's drought monitor update did not included hardly any of the rain that we got from last week. I am going to guess that basically all the yellow in the Denver area and Fort Collins, that'll be long gone. Colorado Springs might be entirely removed from drought as well. Pueblo as well, because even in Pueblo, Colorado Springs last Thursday, by the way, had about 3.2 inches of rainfall on Thursday alone. That was for Colorado Springs, one of the wettest days ever recorded them there as well. Pueblo also saw about 2.5 inches of rainfall. Just a ton of water across all of eastern Colorado. I know it wasn't headache-free, but we did see quite a bit of issues. I know our wonderful producer, Bobby Sheldon, had her house flooded as well. So I know there's unfortunately some flooded basements, some flooding issues around the metro area. This was not a headache-free rainfall. A lot of you dealing with those headaches. I will just note that we saw some really good benefit. I mean, this amount of water here, folks, is going to really help out with the drought for the next weeks, if not months. This was a drought busting, not a drought denting. This was a drought buster here, folks. This, for much of eastern Colorado, making a huge difference in terms of the drought situation. Now, one thing I've also heard a lot of, and I'll kind of close out with this, is the 2013 flood comparisons. The rainfall amounts were similar in the immediate metro area in Denver. Again, 4 to 6 inches worth of rainfall seemed to be what most of us ended up with. That's fairly similar to what we saw in September 2013. Two big differences, though, and that both of those differences making this a lot less severe than what we saw from the 2013 flood. Number one, and this is probably the most important one, in the foothills, where you might remember it was the Big Thompson, the St. Vrain rivers that really flooded and led to the destruction of Lyons, parts of Boulder, etc. Out into the foothills, we didn't see nearly the amount of water that we saw in 2013, and a lot of the higher elevation areas there, that rain fell as snow instead, which means that we didn't have this huge rush of water coming downstream like what we had again back in 2013. Very different situation in the foothills, first and foremost, and that's the most important one. Number two is what we saw last week. Those rainfall rates were a lot slower. So often when we're talking about flooding, what tends to concern us is how fast that rain is falling. This was a fairly stretched out. We saw fairly consistent quarter, maybe ½ inch of rain per hour rainfall rates. In the September 2013 flood, we saw 1 to 2 inch per hour rainfall rates. So a lot more water in a shorter period of time. And that led to a lot of those bigger issues that we saw back in 2013. So overall, again, I want to reemphasize that what we saw just a few days ago, while in some cases we saw lots of standing water out on the streets and roadways, this was not 2013, and it was not close, and that is certainly good news. That said, obviously the ground is pretty saturated at this point. Any water that we add will lead to ponding of the roadways, low-lying areas, streams, creeks will continue to remain on the high side for probably the next couple of weeks at this point. But we did, I think, for the most part, avoid some of the 2013, like, the widespread devastation that we, of course, remember from September 2013, for those of you who were there then. For those of you who were not here in September of 2013, that was the last really big major flood of note for us along the Front Range. Led to multiple fatalities, led to a couple of towns basically getting completely demolished, notably the town of Lyons in Boulder County. Again, this was not a 2013 level flood, but it did lead to quite a bit in the way of headaches, a lot of standing water, a lot of issues, and of course all the hail damage that we saw from the associated storms as well. So, top line takeaways from what we saw last week. One, a ton of water. We picked up about a third of our average annual rainfall in just about 48 hours. We saw more than double our typical full May rainfall in about 48 hours. We've added on a little bit of that since then. Very long-lived rainfall event for us as well. But the good news is we avoided the 2013-like consequences, and that is certainly something that we're grateful for. And this overall a drought-busting rainfall. That said, again, I know there's a lot of flooded basements out here across the Denver metro area, and hopefully we don't, but we will probably add another inch or two of rainfall later on this week. That'll probably exacerbate some of those concerns. So just worth noting, we're not done with the rain yet, although next week, should note that looks a lot drier for next week with temperatures. They'll probably get into the low 80s with lots of sunshine. So hopefully it gives you a good idea, good context about what we just saw, and we'll keep posted with the very latest on all this coming up here on 9 News.